Side Detective Rod Wheeler and consulting attorney for the defense, Jennifer Berenger, join us now. Jennifer, now please tell me why the defense says that Roy Kronk, the meter reader, moved Kaylee's body.
Well, basically, it's because of what he said himself. In fact, he told almost every member of his family that he was going to be rich and famous, that he had control of the body, and we know that he had control of Kaylee's body, whether physical or not, between August and December.
Now, why did he have control?
Well, he found the body in August, as we know from his initial phone calls and also his phone calls to his family. In deposition, this all came out. And then he didn't, and then all of a sudden he didn't make that next call until December, so he could have actually taken the body and preserved it in some way. It could have been in a freezer,
Jennifer,
could have been anywhere.
hold on, Rod. Jennifer, $225,000. So why didn't you call in August? Get the money earlier. Put it in the bank. Get interest on it. Rod, what do you think?
That makes absolutely no sense at all. Just because this guy found the body or found the remains in August doesn't mean he had control of it. He made the 911 call, which is what people are supposed to do. He knew where it was, exactly. And the police didn't go out there. They searched that area. They could not find any of the remains at the time. He made the call again 3 or 4 months later. You know, I think what the defense is doing here, Judge, is just trying to really take all of the attention off the real murderer in this case. The real murderer in this case is Casey Anthony herself. Mr. Kronk had nothing to do with this.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Is the defense saying that Roy Kronk was in cahoots with George Anthony? I mean,
no, that is not something that we were saying at all. In fact, Roy Kronk is someone that during deposition we were, you know, horrified to find out some of these things. He really did have control over this body. And
because he knew about it.
Who put her body in the woods, Jennifer? Who put her body in the woods?
Originally or next?
How about originally? Start there.
I think that Jose is insinuating that George did it.
No.
That George did it. Rod?
No. Casey Anthony put the body in the woods. Look, let's look at the facts. Just stick to the facts, okay? All of the evidence points directly to Casey Anthony. This whole business about a drowning was just another lie in the many lies that Casey has come up with. And if you know, this whole business about the drowning didn't even come up until the day before the trial started, by the way.
For you,
it didn't come up 3 years ago.
Wait a minute, why would she sit in jail for 3 years, Jennifer, and wait till the first day of trial when she's dying to get out of jail to say, oh, it was an accidental drowning?
Because
what's that about?
We were very, very closed-mouthed with the press. Nobody knew what our theory was.
How about tell the DA and ask him to let you go?
No.
We, you know, I can't talk about our discussions with the DA,
Why didn't she call 911?
Pardon?
Why didn't she call 911?
Well, you know,
the baby drowned?
She felt like her father was going to take care of it. He said he would take care of it. She's now in a position to protect her father, which we know people who've been abused have a very strange relationship with their abusers.
Okay, Jennifer, let me ask you this. They had George Anthony on the stand. Why didn't they cross-examine him when they had him on the firing line? Shoot, if they're saying you raped a daughter, you got him on the stand, cross-examine. Go ahead, Rod.
You're exactly right. That's the point I was going to make. Why, if George had something to do with this, why didn't they confront him when he was on the stand? Remember, George is the guy that already testified that this whole business about the baby drowning is a lie, too. Remember, he testified that early on, that this is all made-up stuff that this woman has come up with.
The decision was just made to not do that, and it might have
We're coming back. We're going to follow the duct tape. The defense says the only physical evidence from the crime scene leads back to George Anthony. Has the prosecution made its case? Plus, their testimony was compelling. But were they telling the truth? Rod Wheeler and Jennifer Berenger are back with us, and we're also joined by Chief Medical Examiner for Burlington County, New Jersey, Dr. William Mannion. Doctor, I'll start with you. What do you make of the prosecution case so far?
There are weaknesses in the case so far. First of all, let me talk about the chloroform. Dr. Vaz has been saying that this chloroform was much, much higher than he ever saw before. Yet another expert, Dr. Michael Rickenbach from the FBI, testified that he didn't think that chloroform levels were that high.
But, Doctor, weren't they talking about two different things? Wasn't Voss talking about the odor, and the chemist, Dr. Rickenbach, was talking about the sample from the rug itself?
Now, the odor he was referring to was the odor of decomposition when he opened that little container.
Right, right.
But chloroform actually has a sweet smell. If chloroform is really that high, I don't know why it didn't overwhelm the pungent odors. With the chloroform, he keeps saying that the levels were so high in the carpeting that he'd never seen them that high before.
Right.
Yet the FBI said they weren't that high. Defense tried to justify that by saying that the carpet materials the FBI received had not been packaged in plastic, airtight containers. So, well, the next logical question is
Rod,
package them in airtight containers and run them again.
Rod, what do you say to that?
Well, here's the thing. Whether or not the levels of chloroform was high or not, it's very consistent with the other evidence that was presented by the prosecution that someone in the Casey household had Googled how to use chloroform to smother a person to death.
Okay, what does that tell you, Doctor?
Did anybody buy any chloroform? I mean, did they buy the ingredients for chloroform? Did anybody buy acetone, calcium hypochlorite, water? You'd have to be playing around with some chemistry
here. You know what? I have to
These are explosive chemicals.
Doctor, I went online. How to make chloroform? You could make it with stuff for your pool. There was a pool there. So, I mean, what does it tell you that someone was online looking for how to make chloroform, and the prosecution eliminated George and Cindy as being at work at the time?
Well, frankly, I don't think they did eliminate George entirely from having access to that. But what I will say is, something that really struck me about these searches is you've also got all these other things that don't have anything to do with it. Ruptured spleen, hand-to-hand combat. And I don't mean to sound sexist, but it really sounds like a male doing a search, not a 22-year-old girl doing a search for hand-to-hand combat.
What is that based on, though? I'm sorry, what is that based on? How can you say that a male was doing this search versus Casey, a female?
I can't say that for absolute, but it just struck me strangely, and I thought to myself, this does sound like something that a male would be searching for, and it's
what about the fact, Doctor, that they eliminated and deleted the searches for chloroform? What does that tell you?
Well, someone was concerned about the search, and it's guilty circumstantial evidence. But we haven't heard the defense yet. All we've heard is the prosecution so far.
But Jennifer, I mean, there could be an argument made that self-defense and hand-to-hand combat was something that she looked up, because when Lee testified this week, he said that she told him that she was held down by Zanny, the nanny, when her child was kidnapped.
But we know that didn't happen because Zanny is a figment of her imagination.
Well, we know that, but is it not consistent, Rod, with someone who's trying to figure out an excuse?
It's very consistent with somebody trying to figure out an excuse. I mean, the whole thing was premeditated.
All consistent, and none of it is proof.
Well, none of it is. The only thing that's proof here, Judge, is this. A lot of people have been saying, do we have a smoking gun in this case? Yes, we do have a smoking gun in this case, and the smoking gun in this case is Casey Anthony herself. That's the biggest smoking gun in this case. Why? Because she's been lying since day one. 3 years later, she's still lying.
Well, okay, we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. Was George lying, and was Casey really crying? Body language expert Tanya Ryman is here. Jennifer Berenger and Dr. Mannion. All right, doctor, the prosecution says that there was duct tape that was placed on the mouth of little Kaylee that stopped her from breathing. Have they proven that?
I don't think so. First of all, the body was so decomposed, all they had was the duct tape in the rough area there. Now, maybe it was just over her mouth. Maybe it was over her nose and mouth. As people talked before, if a body begins to purge during decomposition, maybe someone put duct tape over their face. Maybe the child was crying and somebody put duct tape over their face to shut them up vindictively.
Well, and that certainly would be an indication of the person who was trying to shut them up killing them. Rod, what do you think? Have they proven that duct tape killed her?
Well, I don't think that they've proven that the duct tape killed her.
Is
but
it
I think it's
believable?
consistent.
Will the jury buy it?
It's very consistent, Judge, with everything else in this case. And that's so important because you can't just look at one piece of evidence in this case. You have to look at the totality of all of the evidence.
I didn't see any searches for duct tape and suffocation. I didn't see any searches on the computer for duct tape and homicide. Or you're using duct tape.
But don't forget now, people use
duct
tape a lot to commit homicide.
Let me ask you this. What about the heart, the impression of the heart on the duct tape? What does that tell you about the person who put the duct tape there?
Excellent.
Jennifer?
Oh, gosh. I think it probably tells you there's some clearly sick. I think that's a really ugly thing. But I hated the duct tape, and I'll tell you why. Because I think the duct tape has been brought in. First, it was chloroform. That was the state's theory. Now it's duct tape.
Maybe
and I think it was only for the purpose of the 403 hearing to get that
nobody knows what a 403 hearing is. Could it have been both?
It could have been both. I think it was both. But, you talk about the little heart-shaped emblem. That heart shape simply meant I love you to the baby from Casey. That's what that meant. That was the message.
It could just mean you're a pretty little girl and I'm a creepy, icky old man.
But Jennifer, isn't the defense saying that George Anthony put her in the bag and threw her in the woods?
Yeah, they're insinuating
so then we know it was a family member.
So it could have been, exactly, but which one's more pathological? George has just as many lies. He's been cheating on his wife. Ugh, he's got as many things as Casey does.
Come on, Rod, how do you answer that?
He was threatening suicide.
Exactly.
But if your granddaughter's dead and your daughter's facing the death penalty, I think a lot of people would break, Doctor. But let's talk about the duct tape, Rod. How do you explain connecting Casey Anthony with that duct tape?
Well, the duct tape came from the home. Okay, we know the duct tape came from the home, and the defense would agree with that. The question is, who used that duct tape on the child's mouth? The thing is, duct tape, and it's very important that the viewers understand, in a lot of homicide cases that I've seen, duct tape is actually used to smother a person to death. That's what you do. And I think in this case, that's exactly what Casey did.
How many men did that versus women? Men
I don't know the
deal
statistics,
with duct tape.
but let me tell you, a woman can use duct tape just as easy as a man can use duct tape.
They can,
and especially if a woman is going to use that duct tape on their child. And then once you put the duct tape on the baby's mouth.
I have a theory. Doctor, tell me if this makes sense. She's searching for chloroform on the internet. She knows how to make it. She searches 84 times. She deletes it. She then makes the chloroform. She first hears about it or sees it on her boyfriend's computer. Then she realizes that maybe the kid gets up. She's dancing up a storm. She tapes the child's mouth. Is that possible?
It's possible, but we haven't seen any definitive evidence that
Will
states
we?
that.
I
don't think so. There are no receipts. She would have had to buy paint thinner. She would have had to buy the acetone somewhere. Don't you think someone would come forward?
Acetone and pool cleaner. I read it on the internet.
That's right.
Yes, I want to thank you all for being with us tonight.
You have to decant it? Yeah.